Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athlete trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this week's episode, we are going to be talking about an evaluation that is all about getting the most efficient information as quickly as possible. And that is the on-the-field evaluation.
You know what? I don't think before you're in the profession of athletic training, you realize how many different evaluations you do.
Yes. Yes, that is very true.
Like you have your on-field eval, your sideline eval, your clinic eval when someone comes in and you're like, oh, I think I know what's going on with you and I don't have that much time.
But I also have like 50 other people behind me that I have to take care of.
Right.
Yes.
So for clarity, we are defining on-field eval as the eval where someone goes down. Typically in this setting, we're talking about an athlete that goes down on the field and you are evaluating them on the field before you get to the sideline. So we're not talking about anything that happens after you get them off the activity field.
Yes.
Or whatever they're doing.
Yes. I know in my world it's the on-court eval.
You do have a lot of on-court. You know what I said the other day? I was referring to the water as in a pool, and I called it the water field.
Well, I was actually just about to say, you don't hear too many in the water evals.
I guess only in an emergency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But then again, that's kind of like lifeguard, like not necessarily AT.
Right.
I mean, unless you are also lifeguard certified and you did actually get in the water, then yeah. That would be a unique one.
I want to talk to some water ATs and see if they're like, because I mean, I imagine you are poolside.
Yeah, you're
right?
for sure poolside.
I've actually never done an on-field, I guess, water eval. Anytime I've had to do anything in the water, they've come out to me.
That's what it would be for me. Ooh, interesting. See? Look at that. Got a good question there.
So if you're not on the water field, what do you ask on the field?
For me, I ask, like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Even if you saw it.
Yeah, even if I saw it, I want to get their take of what happened. Where their pain's at. I mean, a lot of times they're already kind of like hovering around that spot. Mm-hmm. So I have an idea of where it's at, but I still want them to tell me so I know exactly where I'm going to be looking. Yeah, and then that's kind of where I go into it. A lot of like palpation and stuff from there.
So I did ask this on our stories. It was one of the first things I asked on our polls this week, and most people said they ask for the mechanism of injury or what happened.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I ask is where, because obviously as you're running out, you have an idea of where, but it might not be exactly right. Yeah. So like I had a baseball athlete who got hit in the shoulder with a ball and it bounced off his shoulder and apparently hit his thumb. And I asked him where it hurt and he was talking all about his thumb and I'm like checking out his shoulder and I'm like, okay, I'll check out your thumb. His thumb was fractured. Had no idea that the ball even hit his thumb.
Yeah. Or like,
because I was so focused on his shoulder.
Yeah. And also too, like, sometimes like how their response to the injury or pain could be sometimes misleading. Like you might be going out there thinking it's a groin injury because their hands are in between their legs, but then it ends up it was a hand injury.
Right.
You know, so, or vice versa. You think, oh, maybe it was their hand, but it ended up being a groin injury. Stuff like that, you know, sometimes just depending on the response could kind of mask which structure might actually be truly injured, kind of like that.
Right. And you could have really good field vision, but if you have someone under a football pile, like...
Who knows?
Right.
Who knows what happened under there?
So anyway, the I don't think I said this one, but then the third most was, did you hear a pop or crack?
Yeah. I mean, I asked that. But again, that kind of... Yeah, I guess even muscular. Yeah, I'd ask that too. Yeah, that's true.
Those are kind of the things that you start with. And then I broke this episode into kind of like by body part. So I first go into like Ankle, we talk about when you get an athlete off the field. Also calming an athlete down. We're going to talk about that. Knee on-field evals. Evals by sport or position. Nice. Thigh, hip evals. Torso, abdomen, spine, shoulder.
Ooh, we got some good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So let's see how much of this we can get through. For an ankle eval. Now, I started with this one obviously because I feel like ankle is the first thing you think of. Like,
one of the most common injuries.
Right. And it's kind of the first thing you go over when you're in school.
Yeah.
But also I feel like ankle is so interesting. When I think about it, the very first thing I was wondering was how many people actually do special tests on the field. Like, does your ankle eval include special tests?
Most time on the field, no.
See? Like, what do you do on the field? Like palpations?
Yeah, mostly just technically auto ankle rules.
Oh, yeah. So auto ankle rules, palpations, kind of like rule out your fracture.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I can get them up.
Right. And then you get them off.
Yeah.
You're not really doing too much, right?
Yeah. If it's sometimes like not too bad, I'll throw in the special test to get an idea of how much pain there is. Like, okay, is this a thing where maybe the kid just kind of like tweaked it kind of thing? And, you know, my basketball guys tend to like walk it off and like, oh, they'll be okay. Or am I going to have to tape this real fast?
Right.
So that sometimes I'll do my special tests on the field just like really quick, like just do a tailor tilt and like an anterior draw real quick. Mm-hmm. But if it's like really significant, it's mostly just palpations, and then I'll take a look at the rest later, or like off the field, off the court.
Right. So I asked if you always do special tests, if you sometimes or never, and we got kind of an even spread. 18% they said they always do special tests. 18% said they never do special test, and the remaining 65 said sometimes. And I think that was kind of like so telling of athletic training that like really it depends is a big answer.
It depends.
You know, I did ask like what special test, and there was a super big variety. Some people only do squeeze tests for like a fibular fracture, which is what I start with. So like usually I'll run on the field. I'll ask them, you know, what happened / if they heard a pop or a crack, I'm calming them down at the same time that I'm doing squeeze test first. Mm-hmm. And then I start at the top and I'm squeezing down, and then I move into my auto ankle rules, malleoli, and then if I could get to the foot, depending. Yeah. And then I get them up. Yeah. Some people also do bump test. Some people do tilt test, Kliger, anterior drawer, but also, so I thought it was interesting because a lot of people said they do bump test, but I'm thinking like cleats. Yeah, you can't really do a bump test with cleats. So, I mean, that's another sport-specific thing. Yeah. Right? Also, I was wondering how much of this is also sport-specific if you're doing all those things on the field. For example, like for a baseball athlete or a softball athlete, if you take them off, right, there's not... depending on your conference and your rules and everything, they might not be able to go back in. Right?
Yeah, I know. Well, I know softball has some re-entry rules, but...
like after the fifth or something for softball.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on how theirs work.
Chris C says, depending on substitution rule, for baseball and softball, if you come off the field... you are subbed out and may not be able to re-enter the game. So I do a quick eval and then have them test it to see if they can possibly finish the inning before a more in-depth eval later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why like you get... well, it was fine. I think we brought this up when we talked to the Candid guys when we did the baseball episode about that's probably the only sport that you see functional testing
on the field
during the eval.
Actually, I did ask about the sport-specific question. Meghan M says, I work rugby, and they happen often when the play is still going on. Same by position, but the rules of the game are very different, often running on during live play.
What the heck?
I know. For example, an ankle, I'll rule out fracture and dislocation, then jump to function on the field. For a knee, I'll do ligamentous eval, range of motion, strength, quick function, again, on the field.
Interesting.
For thigh, hip, I'll rule out deformity, check range of motion, strength, function. Same process basically for all parts. If they fail function, I take them off the field. Once they're subbed, they're done, and there are limited subs per match.
Ooh, interesting.
Only exception is head injury assessment and blood time.
That's interesting. Okay, so there is another sport where you can see an on-field functional testing.
Right. I mean, usually, like, you know, you get some, like, especially like a pitcher or catcher.
Yeah, right.
Like, just throw a little.
Let's see a couple pitches, how you feel.
Right.
You don't see that in basketball. Like, hey, why don't you go hit a layup real quick? Let's see if you can do that. That's interesting.
Right.
I forgot about that. So, yeah, I could see
why.
I
mean, you do on the side, not like on the court. You don't ask them to do a layup.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, you know. Like, baseball is just so unique that you literally have the avenue
and
to
softball,
do that.
right.
But I think it is because of that aspect. Like, if they're off, like, they're done. Like,
right.
At least I know for sure in baseball. Like I said, for softball, I know they do have re-entry rules, but I'm not familiar with those. So.
Right.
So I wouldn't take the chance.
Exactly.
If I'm working, I'd still try and say, hey, can you finish the inning?
And so that's the thing is, like, you can take so much more time on the field when you're at, like, baseball or softball versus some of your other sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anywhere else. Like, football, I get them up. I don't work soccer. Anything about soccer specifically? Tennis, you have a 2-minute rule.
Yeah, I don't like sports like that.
Yeah, like
they
wrestling.
Start a clock.
Wrestling, you have a clock.
Yeah, I mean, soccer is kind of the same, right? If you go out there, they have to come off, but a lot of times, like, they can be subbed in. Like, if you get them off, they can re-enter pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, so that's not. I mean, it can be a huge deal, especially because if they're gonna come in real quick, they're probably not gonna sub them. So in that moment, they're gonna be shorthanded. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times the coach will be asking, do I need to sub?
Right.
So that's why you're kind of like, depending on the severity of the injury. If it's not too bad kind of deal, like you can get them in pretty quick, where they probably won't have to make that sub. They just got to get the ref's attention, like, hey, I'm good. And then they'll let them re-enter.
In performing arts, they stop the show.
Does the curtain come down to block everything? Or?
It depends on the contingency plan, but and where they are in the show. And sometimes, depending on the theater, they have some contingencies that will close the curtain and then evacuate everyone, and they'll just stop the show.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Basketball, they either come off or they have to burn a timeout. That's a bummer.
I know. I'm so scared of that. I do not want to ever have to.
Especially how valuable timeouts are in basketball.
Right.
We get 1 million of them. So
Haley L says, cleats or shoes make a difference first. Some have easy access to palpate malleoli, others don't. This is also like when they spat and you're like, can you not please? Because you're just harming yourself when I'm trying to do an ankle eval on you.
Well, shoot, this is like shoes are getting like tighter.
Yes.
Like especially like soccer boots. Like especially like the Nike ones, because they have like that like conforming like fly knit material for like the ankle.
The sock?
Yeah, basically the sock. Like it's like super tight now, and it's like it's making it almost impossible to get these shoes off if there is an injury.
Well, that's what shears are for.
Yeah, seriously.
It's always useful to consider the sport and position they are playing when going through the evaluation, because their sport/position demands are slightly different, as well as the surface they are playing on and additional forces. For example, a baseball player sliding into second base and jamming the ankle into the bag is different than stepping on the bag awkwardly while running the bases. In football, lineman has different levels of forces and often weight than a position player moving freely around the field. There are considerations in the back of my mind. Competence in the sport and biomechanics or forces of that sport can be helpful to evaluate an injury and possibly a go or no-go call. But sports where time stops, I might take a little bit more time to check them before getting them up because there's less pressure.
Yeah.
I did ask this also on our stories. 61% of people said they have a generally same eval per sport, but 39% of people said they do vary their on-field eval by sport.
I think, too, it's a lot of just understanding the lingo of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like just how athletes talk and describe what happened makes a big difference, because then you can kind of visualize what they're talking about.
Right. So going back to the ankle, Christina S says, biggest thing is where the pain is and if there's any chance of fracture. I always check the fib before getting them off. If that's good, I'll let them off the field to be more thorough.
Yeah.
Do you want to read from Marissa S?
Yes, Marissa S says, mostly palpation. Are the bones in the right places? No deformities? Then great. Let's move them. Sometimes they're not calming down or not willing to try standing yet, and I'll do more. I'll have them plantar and dorsiflex so they trust it's still working. And if we're still sitting there, then I'll do inversion, eversion, and anterior drawer.
I feel like this is a good, in between. That was like, okay, I don't always do these things, but if we're just sitting there and they're really just need another minute, at least I can continue my eval.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I let them know, hey, take your time. We're in no rush.
I say that too.
Yeah.
I usually, even though I don't like to be on the field very long, I usually okay, let's get up. We're good. Everything's stable. Mm-hmm. Let's get up. But I do verbalize, we can take as long as you need.
Yeah.
Most of the time they don't.
Yeah. Most of the time they get up pretty quick. And even when I say, okay, there's no rush, I'll give it another minute or two. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
But a lot of times too, ref will be trying to rush us, and I honestly don't even listen to the ref.
Yeah.
They'll be saying something, go get them all. I'm like, I didn't even hear a word you said, buddy.
I haven't had a ref rush me in a while.
I feel like it hasn't happened in a long time, but every now and then you'll get one that wants to try and keep the game moving. Yeah. Sometimes again, I worked a lot of soccer, but again, a lot of times it's a soccer ref.
Maybe that's why I don't work soccer.
Yeah, soccer ref just didn't want to put extra time on.
So
something he was trying to do.
Something that I really liked from Josie, he said, a lot of my preceptors taught me to be thorough enough because you have a whole stadium and crowd watching. Obviously, take your time and do your job, but there is so much more that you can do on the sideline. If it's safe to move and the athlete is ready, let's move to begin the next steps.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's you're not trying to figure out what is wrong on the field necessarily.
Yes.
You're trying to rule out the big things and make sure that you can get them off.
Yes. All it's doing is, like you said, making sure they're safe to move and then just trying to set the table for the off the field eval. Yeah,
you don't need to decide you don't need to let coaches know what is going on.
Yeah, we don't need. Oh, God.
And you don't need to debrief your doc right after your 30-second on-field eval.
Yeah. I don't think we need to do active, passive, range of motions, and then manual muscle test on the field. We can get those done off the field.
Right. That is one thing I notice every time I have students who've never done an on-field eval. I feel like their very first thing they want to do is range of motion.
Oh, interesting.
It's very common that I'm finding that they come on and they're like, oh, let's just see if you can move it. I'm like, whoa. Hold on.
I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like students now are doing that first before palpation.
It is. They do. It's crazy.
I don't know why.
I'm not sure if they're learning it that way or
I feel like I'd rather do palpation first.
What I teach is obviously calm them down. Once we've gotten them to a point that you're evaling, right? The process that you need to do for every single injury, not just ankle, is start with what is the biggest thing that you're worried about. Well, obviously life-threatening, we're past that, right? We're talking about orthopedic eval. So bones, you got to check for fracture. So usually that means some sort of palpation, some sort of axial load, fulcrum test, if you depending on what the limb is, so you rule out fracture, right? Then you move into bone. Then the next structure you look at is joint. So you're looking at stability, you're looking at ligaments, you're looking at special tests, you're looking at at that point, if you've already ruled out fracture, you can then go into range of motion if deemed necessary that you feel like that it needs it on the field, right?
Yeah.
And then you can move into muscle. So, and honestly, I'm not usually testing muscle on the field. I think the closest I get to doing that is grip strength. And that's softball, baseball. If I'm really doing an on-field eval, I'm kind of jumping ahead because we do talk about shoulder, but we're really not you're not really doing an on-field eval for upper. You're just kind of like, get off, like hold it, get off.
Yeah.
We can take care of this on the sideline.
Yeah.
You know, but if it's like baseball, softball, they're not going to get up or they're not going to get off the field, right? So like grip strength. I think that's the only time I really, off the top of my head, that I do something muscular.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's definitely lower extremity. I'm not doing anything muscular. Like manual muscle testing, or like motion stuff. I'm just going to make sure, can we walk?
Right.
Because I'm thinking like hamstring or quad. Okay, how difficult are we going to be able to walk?
Right. So again, just like biggest to smallest bone, joint, muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I really do much manual muscle testing. I guess, baseball, softball would be different because they are going to be on the field. You can keep them on the field.
Right.
So you want to make sure, like, hey, can you actually stay on the field effectively?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yeah, I think all my sports, I probably wouldn't. I just take them off the water.
So I did also talk about the calming down process for like an on-field eval. I asked when people calm someone down. So the 3 options were, I don't start my eval until I calm them down. I will calm them down as I am palpating and evaluating, and my focus is the injury coaches will calm them. Most people said they do it simultaneously. They'll calm them down as they're palpating / evaluating.
Oh, I don't know how. I have to be in the first category.
Right.
I will not start until, because like,
I mean, it's almost evenly split. We have 52% people saying they do it at the same time. 46% of people say they have to calm them down ahead of time, which only leaves 2% of people saying like the coaches or someone else will calm them down, so they could focus on the injury. I think we're mostly in the same like mindset that we have. And I think it also depends on if you're by yourself or if you have students or if you have another athletic trainer with you, you know, what that process looks like as far as calming them down.
Yeah.
And also your philosophy.
Yeah.
Or your rapport with the athlete.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, while I'm calming them down, I am observing. Like, I'm seeing, like, I mean, if things are twisted the other way.
You're stabilizing as you're like
there's things pointing the way they shouldn't be anymore. Like, obviously, I'm doing that part of the eval, but yeah, most of my energy is going to go to calming them down because I'm not going to get anywhere.
No, you aren't. It's going to take forever. Yeah. They're going to roll around.
And I'm going to ask them questions. They're not going to answer. And like, it's really test of patience at that point. Yes. So that's why let's just calm them down.
It's not good for anyone.
Yeah. Let's just calm them down. And then I'll start my eval. My always favorite though is when I ask, what happened? And it's like, it's my knee. Okay, so what happened? My knee.
At that point, I hit them with whatever their name is. Like, I need you to talk to me.
Yeah, I know. What happened? My knee. I know that's a body part, but what happened?
That is, you know, people did submit talking about making a joke, like making jokes.
Yeah.
To kind of like lighten the mood.
I think for me, it depends on who it is and the context.
Right.
Like if they're in a lot of pain, I'm not going to jump to the joke.
Right.
To try and lighten it. But you're right. That does help sometimes. Especially if you know the personality of the athlete and you have pretty good rapport, then you can get away with a joke in there.
Right. I think just the other day I had someone who had like a really big hit. And I came over and I was like, a hit like that gets a visit from me. And they just laughed.
That's pretty funny.
Kat L. So I did ask about like how you calm them down. And Kat L said, keeping it simple. I call them by name. I tell them to look at me. And then I instruct them to breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth. I think giving them something to focus on, honestly. Just focus on your breath. Looking at something, right?
Yeah. And I just validate what they're feeling. Like I know it hurts and I know it sucks. So just validating that. And then same thing, kind of going with their breathing and just kind of focus on that.
I usually like to try and look at them and look at their eyes for a second so I can see what's going on in their, you know, you can get a lot from their face.
Yeah.
If they're able to look at me, if they're not able to look at me, if they're able to focus and open their eyes, or if they're kind of like in La La Land or somewhere else, not with us, right? And just again, that breathing is usually what, and if I get them at least through like one cycle of breath, then I can start, you know. And then I usually remind them like, hey, keep with that breathing.
Yeah.
Chris C says, if the athlete is freaking out / screaming, etc., I'll do what I can to calm them down, but I also don't want to delay care. So as I begin an eval, I'll try to use affirmation and start off with palpation and testing that shouldn't cause any pain. And then I give them positive wording to help calm them down more before I get to palpating and testing that may increase their pain.
Nice. That's nice.
I know. I really like that. That's usually off the... I've never really thought about that for on the field. I think for off the field, I definitely start where it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And then so they get used to like my palpation, and then I move to the area. But I think, especially like I'm thinking ankle, like I jump straight into the squeeze test and then malleoli.
Yeah. I think I tend to start where I know it's probably not hurting. Like it'll still be obviously in the same area. Like if it's an ankle, I'm not starting at the knee. Right. So like if it's an ankle, right, I'll probably start my auto ankle rolls like, with the navicular tuberosity, right? I mean, how often does that really hurt on an inversion ankle sprain? So I'll start there just because they're already in pain. I just calm them down. I'm not trying to press the spot that I know probably really hurts. And then we're just back into now I'm trying to calm the kid down. So it does kind of add more time of being calm. So I think I tend to do that too.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about for a knee on-field eval?
Like,
what do you do for your knee?
Somewhat the same. Like I for sure still start with palpation, but that one tends to be really quick just to make sure, again, everything's like in place and we're not looking at anything too crazy. And then I will try to jump into a Lockman first. I don't even think I really do varus valgus anymore.
That was my question about the knee eval.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no. I think I just do a Lockman, and then that's kind of it.
I think it also depends on your sport.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
well, again, if they're staying out there, that might make a difference.
Well, I mean, at football, I'll do a Lockman and valgus varus. Unless they're wearing a knee brace. If they're wearing a knee brace, then I just get them up. Because I'm not going to take the knee brace off on the field.
Yeah.
I palpate if I can. Honestly, sometimes I don't if they're in a knee brace. I have.
I guess that is kind of.
And I haven't. Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's kind of in the way.
One time I got a PCL in a knee brace, and I was able to do a posterior drawer in the knee brace on the field before getting them off.
Nice. Did you feel it positive? It's interesting. I wonder if it's because like most of those, like, was it kind of like one of those like hinge? Like,
it was a lineman brace. It was yeah.
I wonder if like, you know, because like a lot of those are like geared towards ACL. I wonder how much posterior protection there is on those.
I'm trying to remember which one he was wearing because we do have two different kinds. We have one that has a bar in the back, and we have one that just has straps in the back. And it was not recent. I don't remember which.
Okay, that's interesting.
One he was wearing. I know he was wearing a knee brace though. I want to say it was the one with the. No, you're right. It was not the one with the bar in the back. Only straps in the back.
Okay.
Which actually is interesting because you'd think him, because he did land on it, you'd think him landing on it would, like landing on the bar, the metal bar in the front. Actually, maybe that's what caused the injury.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Interesting.
56% of people said they do ACL tests and a valgus varus test. So most people. 29% said they sometimes include valgus varus. 14% said they never do valgus varus, and 1% said they only do valgus varus. I think these 1%, 2% are funny because we actually get a few votes for them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is kind of interesting. I wonder in what context you only do valgus varus. That's what I was wondering. So Jenna W says she rules out fracture of the femur, tib, fib, especially the fibular head. The patellar location, which
that's good to know.
No one else talked about this patellar location. I think that's so important. That's one of the first things I do is figure out where that patella is. And I think it's because we talked about this a couple episodes ago, is the very first emergency eval I did as an athletic training student. It looked like the patella was dislocated, but it was actually the fibular head.
Yeah.
So that patella location is something, and I've heard some people, like when, I've never seen it, but when you snap your patellar tendon, like that patella is going to move,
up in the quad.
Right? So I've heard that some people miss that too. So looking for that patella. Then she tests the ACL, PCL, MCL, LCL. Same routine every time, every knee injury.
Nice.
I feel like knees are very straightforward.
Yeah.
And then do you want to read the one from Christina S?
Yes. So Christina says, palpate for location. Base test off of that. But I typically will go through all knee ones quickly. Valgus, varus, anterior drawer, Lockman's, Lely's, and McMurray's. Only if it seems severe. If not, I'll palpate where, ask if they can get up, and then finish off the field.
We did get a few people who included like a couple of meniscus tests or like a couple of different ACL tests, which I thought was interesting. Like some people said like they'd do like pivot shift on the field or like McMurray's, or like some people go through the whole knee, which I don't know specifically like what sport.
Yeah.
Some people just do, like I just do palpation, Lockman, valgus varus for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't test the meniscus on the field. But I could see pivot shift, like if you're already doing like valgus, it's a nice little transition into pivot shift. Maybe it's more efficient.
Maybe.
I'm just saying, you're already kind of there.
Unless your MCL's gone and then pivot shift is not really useful.
Yeah. Just saying. Instead of like going Lockman, then you have to switch your hand, like slide your hands differently for a valgus. I can see it.
I feel like you have to get the Lockman first. Also, that is another thing that I noticed.
That's why I like this
Lockman. I have like the students who come through, they learn that Lockman doesn't go first. I don't know now let me clarify. I don't know if they learn a specific order or if omittedly they do not learn that Lockman goes first.
What do they do first?
They do like anything else, like valgus varus or like, to me, I'm like, first. You are about to make them guard if you cause them pain.
Yeah. You only get one great shot.
Yeah, you have to do that Lockman. And I'm
going to be honest, man. Every time I do it, like I feel like they're already guarding by the time I am able to do it.
The Lockman?
Yeah. So I'm like, dang it. Yeah.
I think I haven't had an acute guarding situation in a while. I feel like most of the time I get guarding like the next day.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I get it.
I feel like my last couple have been like, even I can get them off the field and they're not guarding yet.
Weird. Yeah, I feel like mine are always guarding, like right away.
Could also be sport.
Yeah. Because like I'll do like a anterior drawer to just like kind of confirm what I kind of felt. And I also do like to see if they truly do guard. Because I
feel like anterior drawer, you could really tell if they're guarding because you can feel the hamstrings.
I found pretty good success with like if they're guarding, like something's really wrong in the knee. And like if I just like barely start moving, I feel those hamstring tendons pop out. I know, oh boy, bad things are happening in there.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I'm trying to remember the last time I felt guarding in the knee that was on the sideline, and I feel like it hasn't been in a while.
Yeah.
So that's good. It just that's just luck, I think.
Yeah. Must be.
What about a thigh hip eval? I can't really think of too many thigh hip evals that I've done except for the one that comes to mind is I had a baseball athlete who was a visiting athlete. They They were running to first base, and they felt a pop in their hamstring. And so then they were just, like, on first base, like, laying on first base.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. It's just palpate. What happened? What do we feel?
Right. It's kind of, like, weird to palpate a hamstring on the field, like, when everyone's watching.
Yeah. I don't know, with, like, track, like, that was the big deal. Mm-hmm. Especially with, like, sprinters. I mean, it's almost as their version of, like, an ACL, right? That season's going to be pretty much toast, or you're going to miss most of it,
right?
Because of it. So there's a lot of emotions that come with a hamstring issue. But
hamstrings are my least favorite injury.
I'll at least try to feel where their pain is to see what it feels like. If there's, like, a divot.
You do that on the field and track. Like, I guess they're done already. Yeah. It's not like they're going to go back.
No, they're at that point they're done. And some of it is too, like, if I'm having to respond on the track, they're probably going to be done. Mm-hmm. The ones that are the gray area are if they come off and, like, oh, my hamstring's hurting, or, like, oh, it feels like it's tightening up. Those are the gray area ones. Like, oh, could they go? Could they not? Which most of the time they're going to be conservative and just be like, nah, you don't need to run that next race.
Right.
But yeah.
For, like, I'm trying to think, like, basketball, I don't think I've ever had, like, a thigh hip, except for, like, they fall on it. But most of the time, like, if they fall on it, I just kind of, like, wait for them to get up if I see it, you know? And then I'll check them off. If they're really not getting up and I get called on, I don't think I've ever got called on for a thigh hip for basketball.
Actually, yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I don't think I have either.
For football, I definitely palpate, because if they took contact to the thigh or hip, like, I had one that I thought was a femur fracture.
Ooh.
Because he took a helmet straight to the thigh, and he was in so much pain.
Ouch.
And he couldn't put any weight on it. My fulcrum test was positive, so I was like,
uh-oh.
Yeah. But really, that's kind of what I did on the field. Like, I put my hand underneath his femur, and I just kind of, like, tried to, like, quote unquote, like, bend the bone to, like, stress it. Because obviously, like, I'm not going to be able to do that from the top where he got hit, because that's going to hurt. Yeah. And then other than that, I just kind of, like, okay, let's get you off.
Yeah.
And then
I'm trying to think, for, like, the hip joint, there's really not much you're going to do on the field. I'm not going to sit there and do, like, a scout.
Right. Unless you think it's dislocated, like, okay, get you off.
But again, that's more observation, because it's not like you can necessarily feel it, because it's pretty deep and there's a lot of big muscles around it.
Right.
So you'd have to see their position.
Right. Also, especially for, like, football, they have the thigh pads.
Yeah, thigh pads.
So you're just kind of like,
and then don't they have, like, the girdle deal?
Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, can you get up? Or can we get you up? Put your leg on. Put all your weight on this other side. Just this last weekend, so usually I just have the teammates help get each other up. I don't know what the heck happened, but we ran out for an injury, and like, all the guys got off the field, and we weren't out there for very long. So I do not know why. So, like, I got up, and then I look around and I realized there's literally no one on the field anymore. And so I was like, okay. So then my two students helped the athlete start getting off. But, like, this,
he was a big kid.
I mean, he wasn't a big kid, luckily, but, like, he's taller than us.
Yeah.
Which is very easy to do. Actually, so I did ask about how you get people off the field, like, tips and tricks. Literally every single answer was about height. Like, oh, well, I'm taller than all my athletes. Or, like, oh, I'm really short. Or, like, this is my height. Like, I know all of your guys' heights now, by the way. But anyway, Natasha N says, since I'm 5'4" and work with all males taller than me, I have them use me like a crutch with their arm across my shoulders to walk off the field. If they can't walk with their good leg, then I carry them off, supporting the injured side, and have a teammate support the other leg. Hockey is easy because I have them single leg balance on the good side and just walk them off the ice while they glide.
That's pretty funny.
I thought that was pretty cool about hockey because I've never worked hockey.
About that.
Right.
That's pretty funny.
I usually just like, hey, hey, those two guys. And usually I don't even have to ask. Like, I'll just turn around and be like, yeah. Actually, I don't have to ask who I should say. I usually just say, guys, can you help me get him up? And then everyone rushes over. And
yeah. The only drawback I have is basketball.
Oh my gosh, they're so tall.
Yeah, they're way taller than me.
And
most of the time.
They're so sweaty.
My team's small, so.
They're so sweaty.
Yes. But, I worked cross, so.
That's true.
That doesn't scare me anymore.
Yeah, but like, I'd rather someone sweaty hold someone sweaty instead of me in my homeostasis non-sweaty.
Yeah. For sure.
You know what I mean?
And then I'm dressed up.
Right.
You do too for indoor, so. Yeah, and then you get sweaty on your nice clothes.
Right. No thanks.
I think the one that gets me is like at a certain point you might as well just carry them.
Sometimes my athletes will be carried off the field by their teammates
because there's sometimes like we are not moving like this.
We're not moving.
We're
very fast.
Going at a snail's pace. Like and like obviously like they're in pain, and the longer the more difficult of a time that they're having, right? The longer it's going to take, the more they're just sitting in pain, the more they're getting frustrated. So it's just easier just to let's just carry them. Mm-hmm. Right. Then you got to make sure it's always tough because especially if it's not like if it's a coach or someone that's helping you, they don't know the best way to carry them. And the next thing you know, we're carrying this person awkwardly. So I have to tell them, okay, grab my arm. Right. So then we'll interlock arms and then have the athlete sit, and then we can lift and then go. Right, but if you don't like, if they don't understand you right away, like I don't know, you're carrying someone awkwardly, and I'm like, okay.
Most of the time,
this is awkward. Now.
Most of the time, I just have the guys pick each other up, whatever they do. But for like an ankle or a knee, especially with football, it's really easy to grab their knee pad, and especially because 99% of the time it is above their knee anyway. Yeah. So I just grab their knee pad and I walk with them, and I'm like basically like it's a sling. Yeah. Like I'm holding their knee pad as we're walking.
It was funny the story that you brought up about the your guys, just everyone left.
Yeah, I look up and I'm like, what the hell, guys?
As they're getting off the field, one of the coaches came to help and just literally just like grabbed this kid and just carried him
over his shoulder.
It was pretty funny.
Okay, so what about torso abdomen eval?
Same thing. I just palpate.
This is like someone got the wind knocked out of them, someone taking contact to a rib, like stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of it's just palpate, and then palpate. Like make sure we're doing okay.
Breathe.
Yeah, make sure we can breathe. Make sure we get deep breaths in. Right, because that's something really quick, like for ribs and stuff. And then I'll make sure like organs are pretty good. Like real quick, make sure there's already not like any guarding in an area or rigidity.
Usually I put my hand on their like abdomen, I guess, like either on their ribs or like on their stomach. Yeah. And sometimes if I'm like, while I'm calming them down, I'll tell them to like breathe into my hand, or like, which is just like sitting right on top. Or like while I'm like, just so I can like have them feel like, that contact is sometimes necessary. Kjersten M says, I look at the skin where they had contact, watch the rise and fall of the ribs, make sure they're equal bilaterally, and make sure there's no sudden tenderness or rebound pain. And possibly get out my stethoscope if I'm not seeing recovery in the first 30 seconds to a minute.
Nice.
Albert T says, life, limb, little was something I learned as a student, and I still use today to prioritize my on-field evaluation, decision, and care. Having an established process is important to rely on, especially during stressful situations. We need to have control of a situation if we are able to provide the best care possible. Overall, have good preparation and execute with confidence. Yeah. Okay, I got a couple more. What do you include in your spine eval? Do you get a lot of spine?
I mean, not as much as you. I get moments that are close. Like when I see two volleyball athletes diving in the same general direction. I'm like, oh boy.
Or like
when they're going to the stand.
Baseball, softball, home plate.
Yeah.
Oof.
But yeah, like, or if they're like diving for a ball and they're going towards the stands. Yeah, gets a little dicey.
Right.
I mean, for the spine, like it's kind of the same, like all the way down, right? Obviously palpation, and then I'll check sensation, right? Like even lumbar, right? Like if we're worried, like I had an athlete, I was covering USA event, athlete fell. Dude, this is pole vault. Athlete fell and like literally landed in the box sitting down. So basically like compressing lumbar spine and stuff.
I was actually just thinking about that.
And had like low back pain, right? So I treat it the same way I would like C-spine.
Right.
Just, okay, he was just sitting there. So I just basically went up to him and like, because I was looking at him, he was facing me. So I went around the back and was palpating lumbar spine to see if there's any tenderness, and then obviously sensation right down. So I think for the spine, it's the same way, especially if we're talking like on the field, on the court. Like, because more than likely it's an acute injury. So I have to rule out any fracture to the spine. So I think it would be the same palpation, and then, yeah, like sensation, dermatomes, and then myotomes if the dermatomes are okay.
That's it. I think spine you can take the longest with.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I think people understand it well. Not that it matters what people understand or not, but like I think it's not a rush on any body's part to do a spine eval rushed.
Yeah.
Usually, no matter what, like I had an athlete who was completely blindsided by a hit, and he just took like a body to his head neck region, and he like it looked like he passed out and then kind of got up to sitting or like kneeling. I don't know how I got up to kneeling from that like so quickly, but and also it was like way across the field for me. But but like I went over immediately and just while he's kneeling, like obviously it's a good thing that he was able to get up to kneeling, but like I still have to check his spine.
Yeah.
So then immediately I went into the same thing that you were kind of talking about, where like I'm facing him, but like my hands are around his neck, so that my fingertips are on his spinous processes, and I'm able to palpate while I'm like looking at him, and I'm stabilizing.
Yeah.
So even though he's not like on the floor that we all learn in class, right?
The nicely laying down.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not have the one actual spinal injury that I've had. Oh, 2 spinal injuries, but actually no, the 2 spinal injuries that I've had, neither of them were laying down. One of them walked in, and the other one was I don't even know how to explain the position he was in. He fell with his butt in the air.
Yes. Yeah.
Like knees on the floor, butt in the air, like head on the floor. Yeah. So, I mean, you got to practice different ways.
For sure.
But yeah, mostly just palpating, and then once you're able to rule out that that's fine, then you can assess that like active range of motion. So like Kjersten M puts it a really good way. My key point with this one is I take cues from the athletes. Do they not want to move their head and have palpable neck pain? Fine. We cervical collar and check extremity dermatomes and myotomes and call EMS if the patient clears that and still doesn't want to move.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think apprehension's a big kind of deal.
One of my friends who I know who's broken their neck said that he felt like his neck was gonna fall off, like his head was gonna fall off, like he had to like hold up his head.
Ooh, that's a key complaint in high cervical fractures, like C2, like the sensation that it feels like your head's gonna fall off.
Not a good feeling.
No, that sounds really weird. No, thank you.
No,
thank you.
Okay, so moving into shoulder eval. What do you include in your shoulder eval on the field? Do you even do a shoulder eval on the field?
Yes. I'll do quick palpations, like AC joint, clavicle.
I think it depends for me.
I mean, I can see my shoulders.
What sport are you thinking right now?
Almost any one of mine, because I don't have equipment. So I can see them. So I know if it's out or not for the most
part.
Well,
okay, but like basketball, they have to come off. Right?
Yeah. But if I'm still out there, I'm at least going to get an idea real quick.
Have you ever done a basketball on like go down with the shoulder? Because here's what I'm thinking. So like I've never had outside of football, I've never had a shoulder that has stayed on the field except for baseball. I had our pitcher took a comebacker to the shoulder. And so I just did an on-field eval real quick, but that like I don't really count that. But in football, I have had some people who have like dislocated their shoulder and they're on the floor, or they, I don't even remember. There was one, I can actually remember the eval and I can remember exactly where it was on the field and which field it was. I don't remember what happened though, but they were laying on the field and they couldn't get up. It was a shoulder thing. So I had to do a shoulder eval kind of on the field, which was interesting because I was like, okay, well, you can get up, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm just going to get them up.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I do a quick palpation and then that's about it.
Right.
And then we just do the rest.
Right. I mean, unless you're really worried about, and even like a clavicle fracture.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get them at least sitting and then up.
Yeah.
Right? There's not really anything you have to like stabilize on the field for upper extremity. Same thing like elbow. You're just gonna, I did have an elbow eval in softball that I did a little bit more because she was on the base. So then she was going to continue running the bases. Yeah. So, I mean, but with an elbow, I was like, are you going to be able to slide? Like, is this your, like, which arm is this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like she had to throw right then.
Yeah.
Or she didn't have to catch. I think really everything else, like fingers, wrists, you can get them off.
Yeah.
Shoulders, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get them off. I think just weird ones.
Yeah. Real funky ones.
Yeah. And again, I kind of said this before, but like athletic training doesn't really operate in blanket statements. So obviously we talk about these outlines, but these should just guide.
Yeah, it's always a depends.
It depends.
Depends.
You never know what you're going to see.
No.
Do you have any other on-field eval tips?
I think for most of it's for like students, because like students like freak out about the on-field. Like they put so much emphasis on, oh, I gotta do it, or I've never done it before, and just like, I don't know, they put so much stress on it, and then they get out there and it's like